Welcome to the True Mindshifters channel.
Our focus today is to share with our viewers our perspective of fear of failure and how the fear of failure impacts our personal and professional life. We'll share some great examples and stories from our personal life. We also will share with you how we deal with these situations. And it's not necessarily mean that we for our personal lives completely resolved all of the fear of failure. It's just we have examples of some of the flavors of those fears and how we dealt with it, and whether some of those fears have resolved completely, partially, or have not resolved at all. In our prior video, we have introduced you to our True Mind Shifter change framework. And basically, what you will learn today as well is that you can apply that framework when you're trying to deal with your fears.
If you find this topic interesting and would like to help amplify the goodness of this channel, please like this video, subscribe, and share our channel with others. So let's get to it.
The fear of failure is a really, really big topic. We are going to just start exploring it today. However, what you will find is that we're going to talk about it throughout many videos. We will bring speakers that will be addressing that topic and show different ways of dealing with fear of failure, whether it impacts you in personal or professional life. However, our recognition, Eva's and mine, throughout our lives is that any type of fear of failure always impacts you and us in some way, personally and professionally. We have yet to find out an example that would show that there is a fear of failure in your personal life and it did not make an impact in your professional life. Even if you are not working in corporate environment or business environment, even if you're a self-proprietor at home or you're doing an online business and you work for yourself, if you start thinking about it, you will realize that some of your fears of failure and the flavors that I've mentioned definitely impacted your abilities in your personal and professional life. So when we're talking about the fear of failure, right, what comes to mind? The disappointment, loss of confidence, and therefore potential negative consequences, right? I can talk about this topic for such a long time because I'm a true example of how fear of failure impacted so many areas in my personal and professional life. What I also found out in my life is that the fear of failure is something that has been programmed into us since we were really, really young. Since our childhood, right? Because when kids are young, they don't really think about being scared of anything, right? Unless it's something natural, right? Like darkness or whatnot. The fear of failure is not present in children because they don't know what to associate it with. Therefore, we strongly believe that the fear of failure is actually something that has been programmed into us by a society, whether it's our family, school, a combination of both, people on the playground, in activities, really doesn't matter. One example would be of how we're programmed into being scared to fail is since childhood, we're being told that we need to do things perfectly. Many examples come to mind in my personal life, and I'm sure people will find that they can resonate with it when we are young or children, and our parents, most of them, would tell us, "Oh, you did this painting, this drawing so well. It's beautiful, but maybe you can do a little more color here, or maybe you can do a couple of flowers there," right? They mean well. What they don't realize is that they're impacting your confidence and therefore setting up a stage for you to think that you haven't done something 100% right. So when you haven't done something 100% right, you start driving towards completing every single thing 100% right because you want your parents to truly acknowledge how wonderful you are, how good you are. So since you're young, the association of being good and doing things perfectly is established. Therefore, if you fail at achieving 100% good of something, you associate yourself with not being good. And that, our dear viewers, is an establishment of fear of failure.
Thanks, Marina. We always seem to have some really interesting concepts. And one of the things that you said, which is visual, that I just love and have to call attention to, is the idea of flavor. So, because when you go to flavor something, right, whatever that flavor is that you're putting it in, that's the flavor that gets carried forward in whatever you're going to make or cook or eat. And so if we're constantly like seasoning ourselves with a certain flavor or attitude or um with, in this case, fear, yeah, to think that, oh, at work you're one way and at home you're another. No. So thank you so much for calling that out in such a fun way. And it aligns with one of the concepts I'm going to call out, and then we'll get to our personal examples in a minute. But the idea of, I'm going to share more about the idea of four good F words. So four good F words that for a long time I've incorporated into how I would help people understand that there's something to learn. And those four good F words are fear, failure, frustration, and fabulous. The fabulous part is what we all want. But to get to fabulous, we usually have to go through fear, failure, and frustration. And it can be very daunting. It can be, sometimes people quit jobs, quit relationships, because of the frustration that they reach. What I would do at home and at sometimes work is recognize that when people are afraid, frustrated, or they're failing, that isn't a sign that the relationship or the person is broken or wrong. It's a sign that there's something to learn. And so if we can use these feelings, emotions, experiences as something to help us learn, then it's that's the whole different opportunity opens up to shift your mind, right? Instead of being taken down by these emotions. So if we can learn to recognize fear, failure, frustration, these negative emotions as signals to us, cues that, hey, we've got something to learn, then it changes our whole perspective. And that's true mind shifting. So rather than look at things in a negative light, look at them and say, okay, this is a negative experience, a negative feeling. What's it telling me? And what can I do about it? So we'll talk a little bit more about this, our personal stories, in a moment. But to get to fabulous, we need to go through fear, failure, and frustration. So those are the four good F words. And then Marina added one more, flavor. All right. So let's shift to some personal stories. Marina, how has fear showed up in your life and what have you been learning from it?
Before we move to our personal stories, Eva, I'd like to make one huge revelation that I just had while you were sharing with everyone this incredible 4F good words, right? That we need to remember. Fear, failure, frustration, and fabulous. The revelation I had is that as you were sharing that we need to look at it as signals for us to learn how to adapt, how to change, that those are the signals that we are actually progressing. You just gave me an incredible idea. We can actually use these signals to recognize when others around us, whether in our personal life or professional life, showing those signals, and we can recognize that those people are going through certain emotions that are causing them to react in fear or frustration, and help them deal with it as well. And therefore, we are creating a positive environment and the change not only within ourselves, but also with other people around us, with other environments around us, whether it's our personal or professional life. This is fantastic, Eva. Thank you so much. I think that is just an incredible, incredible revelation. Thank you. I love it.
Marina,
So
thank
now,
you. Really quick. You added another F word. Fantastic. So thank you. And yes, that's like next level. So that's Marina, people. She takes it to the next level. So thank you, Marina, for calling that out.
thank you for bringing it. So now we're gonna do like six beautiful F words, right? Failure, fear, frustration, and those are negative, low vibration words. And then we have fabulous, fantastic, and what was the other one that you were telling me?
Flavor.
Flavor. Here we go. And you know what we just did, Eva? We achieved a balance. And that's an ultimate goal of the whole world, is to live in balance. Congratulations to both of us. We are fabulous. So, and to now share an example that absolutely comes to my mind. Actually, not an example, it's more of a story, right? It's a real story about me, and it's the story of someone who was being very entrepreneurial and always was finding uh, 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 it's exciting to create and build businesses. So I built a few businesses, and I ran one for 10 years, and it was so exciting, so rewarding, even though it was very, very difficult with a lot of challenges, a lot of learnings, a lot of failures on the way. However, what happened was it was a difficult time for our country and for the world, and I ended up losing everything I had, including the business. That left me so completely emotionally, psychologically, mentally destroyed that I was paralyzed inside. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to live. I was in such fear that people will judge me, that people will make fun of me, that people will enjoy the fact that I am at loss. And all of those were wrong. Those were all the signs of a fear of being judged and exposed, and it's uh, those were all signs of losing my confidence and my in establishing incredible insecurities about who I am as a person. What happened after I had moved to different state, it took me a while to learn some of the new skills and then get a job. And that built a pretty negative picture of who I am, even though um, people also saw through, because I'm very emotional, I'm very kind, I am very respectful person. And those negative qualities were pretty powerful, and they were creating a really difficult picture of who I am at work and in my personal relationships with friends. And therefore, instead of helping me in my life, those things were negatively impacting me in my personal and professional life. How I understand and how I restarted resolving this issue is I realize that we are all good people. And Brene Brown's books helped me understand that we are all doing the best we can. If we believe that we're doing the best we can in our lives, number one, and number two, if we know that what happens to us and the situations that happen in our lives do not define us, they don't define who we are as people, then we can get through that fear. That's what I started doing. I came to a realization that I'm doing the best I can. The situation that occurred with me was a lesson to teach me something. And we can talk about other lessons, right? I started approaching everything from the position is that what happens to me doesn't define me as a person. I'm doing the best I can always. And number three, whatever happens to us, it's a learning lesson. What about you, Eva?
So the fear that I have, it shows up in different ways. I almost see it as masks of fear, and I feel it more as a sense of judgment. And I am afraid of being judged, which I've talked about before. My relationship with failing is different too. I want to be mindful of how I share this, because it isn't about blaming anyone or saying someone did something wrong, but rather my own experiences is I grew up with extremely bright, amazing siblings. And I was the youngest. And when I would go to school, teachers would know, oh, you're so-and-so's sister. And I knew that they were very good students, and I was not the best student. And so I was regularly reminded of how brilliant my siblings were when I was at school, or when we would talk about things and how smart they were, what they would remember, what they were capable of. They were stronger, they were faster, they were smarter, all these things. And so to me, comparison came up a lot. And I think it really got into my head that I wasn't very capable. I wasn't very smart, even though I knew I was a good person inside. I had self-confidence, but it wasn't what you might think. It didn't run as deep, maybe is the way to say it. So I think I carried that through in terms of getting defensive professionally. If I do something, I get defensive. And so it doesn't appear necessarily as fear, but and this is something more Marina and I have recently, frankly, she's helped me understand more about myself, because I trust her so much. She'll call out when she sees me being defensive, and it stops me to help me become more aware. So if I don't do something, it's interesting too. I've also told her, I'm used to failing. I'm used to not being the one that got it right, the one that did it the best. I'm used to it. So if I make a mistake, I'm not as hard on myself, which in some ways is good. But if I'm too lax, then I can fail to follow through on something that's a commitment to myself or to someone else. And that's not necessarily good either. So this is about putting myself back in balance of why am I, afraid of judgment, but I'm also, on the other hand, maybe not following through on things for myself or others. So finding a balance is where I'm at right now. And the model that Marina's come up with, that we spoke about in the earlier session, is actually helping me. And I'm just on step one with some of this. So, I'm learning about the things that I'm not as conscious of, but thankfully having someone to help me reflect on my behavior, I think is going to take me a long way. And that's, why we're sharing our stories. So thank you, Marina.
Eva, thank you so much, first of all, for being so brave and sharing not only what your fear is, fear of judgment, but also such an incredible example that is also giving a little more glimpse into your life and connects how your childhood programming had impacted your life now. And thank you for recognizing my friendship with you and the opportunity that we have with each other to help each other not only recognize our fears, but also to learn from it, which makes me believe that if our viewers, and many of the viewers have fear of judgment. I know some people, some very close people in my life, very close people in my life, who constantly tell me, I don't want to be judged. I am afraid of being judged, right? And so, or people that tell me, as me, I really want to be viewed and perceived as someone who can achieve anything, right? What we recommend is having a close person, and Brene Brown tells about these people as a close circle, having close circle of friends, no more than 2, 3, no more, who you can trust and who trust you enough to be able to tell you about things that you may want to recognize. Because with Eva, I appreciate and value you because you help me do the same. And I trust you. So when you help me acknowledge things or you recognize things for me, I stop and I think about it because I believe you, because I know that you have my best interest at heart and I have yours. So this is something that our viewers can think about if they want to actually start recognizing things that make them afraid. What comes to mind as we're getting closer to the end of our conversation is an incredible quote that I would like to say as shared by Ajah Chah. There are two kinds of suffering. There is the suffering you run away from, which follows you everywhere. And there is a suffering you face directly and so become free. If I paraphrase that quote and say there are two kinds of fear approaches, there is this fear approach you run away from, which follows you everywhere forever. And there is a fear approach that you face directly, and so you become free.
That's beautiful. So we can remember that we have some good F words and we balance them out so they're not all negative. But when we feel fear, failure, frustration, just remember it's on the path to becoming fabulous if you stop to learn. And everyone's going through this. We're not going to eliminate fear from reality. We're not going to eliminate all of the feelings that we have when we fail. So leverage that TMS change framework. And even if you just do step 1, you're on the right path.
Remember that failure means first attempt in learning. That's Dr. APJ. So we are at the end of our conversation, and we hope that our stories help you face the fears and deal with it and know that you're not alone.
Thank you all for joining us. We send you support, empowerment, and love.